This is Grace, Grit, Getting It Done, the podcast for women who want to expand their influence, increase their earnings, and advance in their careers all the way into the C-suite. I'm your host, Lisa Gillette. Let's get started. You've got the title. You're leading a high-powered, high-performing team, and you consistently over-deliver on those high-profile projects. You're recognized, respected, and rewarded. You are absolutely crushing it. And unfortunately, you're also experiencing that uncomfortable feeling that this is not what you signed up for. You're exhausted. You're too stressed out to enjoy your success. You're managing a schedule that never stops, a pressure that never lets up, and a race that is never ending. You keep wondering, when did having it all mean never getting it all done? And you ask yourself, is this what success really feels like? Is this really the life I want? Or is it the life I built to prove I could handle it all? If this is true for you, then you need to listen to my guest today, Lisa Yarussi. Lisa was a chief human resources officer, and now she's an executive coach. She's the founder of Layup Coaching and Consulting, a practice she created for leaders who are tired of running on empty. Lisa coaches both men and women, but her gift is speaking directly to women in leadership roles. Because when you're a woman at the top, the expectations are relentless. You've got to be decisive and diplomatic. You've got to be driven, but likable. And you've got to be ambitious, but not too ambitious. The emotional intelligence required to manage all of this is in itself a full-time job. And Lisa gets it. She's here to challenge the myth that nonstop hustle equals success. Through her work, Lisa helps high-performing leaders revise the roles, creating a new style of leadership that is grounded in self-awareness and well-being, not burnout. In this episode, Lisa will tell us how to take the leap, redefining success, what it really means to pause, pivot, and pursue a version of success that feels authentic to you. We'll talk about motivation, inspiration, and why practicing self-compassion might be the most strategic career move you'll ever make. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. It is good to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Oh, I'm very grateful you're here. So let's start at the top. Why do you think so many women wrestle with overwhelm?
Well, let me say up front that each woman's journey and lived experience is unique due to the complexities of identity. So it's important to give pause and honor those differences. However, I will speak to how systems, societal norms, and the personal experience of operating in male-dominated industries does indeed contribute to overwhelm. So there are several workplace systems that shape the experience for women. There's the physical workspace, technology, culture, and values of the organization, leadership, and the employee life cycle processes. And what I mean by that, that's every aspect of the employee experience from hiring, onboarding, learning and development, the reward systems, promotion. And these systems are not often built with women in mind. And this leads to more work, both physically and psychologically, for women trying to figure out, how do I fit in? And then we increase our labor and effort to be heard, seen, and hopefully invited to the table. And then there's the societal norms and expectations. And this also plays a role in creating overwhelm. Women are traditionally seen as the caretakers of children and the home. And these views weave themselves into the workplace when decisions are being made to hire, promote, or design project teams. So some decisions think, we'd like to think this doesn't exist anymore, but it does. Is she married? Will she be starting a family soon? Will she need time off? And sadly, the double standard exists. For men starting a family, the questions or the thoughts are, he's now more responsible. Let's promote him. Let's give him a raise due to these rising family costs. And then the third aspect that really drives or can contribute to overwhelm is ourselves. It's our personal narratives that can create overwhelm. I believe and have witnessed women working hard to do it all in the workplace, at home, within their communities. And our own narrative can create more pressure, leading to exhaustion and overwhelm. So each of those factors do contribute, and we've all been allotted the same number of hours each day, yet the expectations for women are greater due to the convergence of workplace systems, societal norms, and our personal mindset. And I've seen it play out on my own journey and with the super talented, high achieving women I've worked with, where overwhelm does lead to feeling we're not doing enough, we're not worthy, or we don't belong.
Right, exactly. So those are some of the negative impacts that are the emotional negativity
Mhm.
that we can sit in. But what are some of the other negative impacts for women if they don't notice and adjust for this overwhelm?
Yeah, it's a great point, and there are a number of conditions and implications. So I think for women, as we work within this continuous state of overwhelm, if we do, this creates chronic stress
Mm,
and can lead to burnout.
yeah,
And burnout is a real problem in the workplace for both men and women, yet the data shows there is a higher risk for women. And I have a couple of data points that I'd like to share. There's a recent LinkedIn study that tells us 44% of female professionals in the United States are burnt out as compared to 30%, 36% of their male counterparts. And there's a Forbes article just in February of this year highlighting the difference. So women's overtime is rewarded less than men's, and women's efficiency is undervalued. Women's fatigue is underestimated. So this chronic stress can lead and does lead to physical and mental exhaustion, where we just don't feel like we have the energy, and there ends up being detachment from the job, and often from the job that we love.
so you mentioned exactly to the point some of the challenges that women experience in the workplace, but could you go a little bit deeper on what happens where I know you're familiar with this phrase, the broken rung in the leadership ladder.
Mm.
Yeah, please speak to that and how burnout can really impact the additional external challenges of women getting promoted, but then there's
Yeah.
that internal challenge of I just can't do it all.
Correct. And I think there's so many of us who are there, and just think about my own experience too. And there's this bit of shame of not wanting to talk about it or share it. Um,
Right.
and and I think that ends up often, and I know we'll get to it, a bit of the healing process, and we'll connect to some of the coping strategies. But some of the other, challenges that are very real that women experience in the workplace, it ends up being the gender bias that sneaks in to the workplace. And I want to talk a little bit about that. There are indeed these double standards and this superwoman expectations. Women are expected to balance these, both your professional duties as well as the responsibilities at home. And this pressure to excel in all these areas lead to this emotional and physical exhaustion. And I've seen how this feeds to women feeling this constant striving for perfection, which we know is elusive, and also thinking and feeling mistakes are a little bit more scrutinized, more so than male colleagues. And this leads to feeling inadequate or frustrated and overwhelmed. And this internalization, it just feeds these unrealistic standards. Another bit within the workplace that is real is unconscious bias in decision making.
Yes.
And this affects women's career progression as well as our compensation levels. Women feel we have to work harder to be recognized, and this impacts our stress levels. So, that lack of recognition and the constant need to prove self is frustrating. And the last one I wanted to mention is this emotional labor and gendered expectations. in the workplace. And we're taking the time to try to manage our own emotions, but also there's emotional requirements of taking care of everyone else. So, and that we're expected to take on this role as caretakers. And we do it naturally, yes, in the home, but then that pressure comes within the workplace as well. We're expected to be the glue. We're expected to be the calming influence. And
Right.
that's like an invisible work that takes on a toll. And I just want to share one quick story
Uh-huh.
of being a member of the senior team. And I was the only woman as part of the senior team. And when we would do our management offsites, when it was lunchtime or the idea of being ready, preparing the food, ordering the food, coordinating the food, all eyes look to me.
Right.
And and anyway, so just, in the interesting thing too, it is these small examples, but it's still a heavy lift.
So pervasive. So you talked about some of the emotional response to being overwhelmed, to being burnt out, but what are some of the markers? Because I think many women, we get that mindset, and you spoke to it of, I can do this, I'm going to get through this, people are depending on me. And yet the diminishing returns as the burnout just increases and we're not able to truly function. So, what are some of the markers that women can be looking for to go, oh my goodness, I'm experiencing burnout?
Yes, and when I know when we get to my story, I wish I was aware of some of these markers
Don't we
myself.
all, right? Yes.
Yes. So it's interesting. The term burnout was coined back in 1975, but here are four of the core symptoms of burnout. And the first one been talking about exhaustion. And
Mhm.
this is just fatigue,
Yeah.
fatigue from caring too much, having too much to do for too long, and you just literally have no bandwidth left. There's this second, mental distancing from one's job. And this was very real for me too. But you begin to sense a lack of connection and engagement to the work that you've always loved. So that's a very telling sign. Number three, there can be cognitive impairment, and that shows up with lack of clarity and focus, and maybe things that came really easy to us, you're like, wow, I can't get out of my own way because again, you're just heavy with lacking the clarity and focus. And number four is the emotional impairment, and the way that might show up is feeling depleted and loss of joy in things that maybe used to bring you a sense of peace and joy. So those are things to pay attention to.
Oh my goodness. So, beyond looking for these markers, how can listeners not only identify, but start to really go, oh, yeah, I'm crashing and burning, and let me put a stop on this?
Yes. And I have a lot of thoughts in this area. So let me start with first to pause and check in.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, and I just really want to stay on that word pause because as a I feel high achieving driven woman myself within corporate, the idea of pause was very elusive to me. And I'm like, who has time to pause? But
But
it is the gift to self. So I want to start there to pause and check in with yourself. And you can do this with a friend, with a coach, with a family member. And what this looks like is taking just a little bit of time. It doesn't take a lot of time to ask and assess. What am I proud of accomplishing this week? Did I carve out time for myself? If I'm real honest and listen to my body, what am I feeling and needing? What is in my control? What can I problem solve? What can I say no to or let go? And then jot down these answers. I think it's incredibly important to take thoughts and put them down on paper and then check in weekly because now you're looking for patterns. Is there an ongoing pattern where there's a lack of energy and pride in your work? Is there a lack of interest with hobbies or relationships? If so, these are the flags to be looking for. Pay attention because in the midst of overwhelm, it is hard to think about making time for self, but it is through that evaluation that we'll probably get the signs and ultimately discover the need we need for relief, rest, and to rediscover joy. I also think a big part, again, thinking about this crashing and burning and how to, take notice and avoid is thinking about our stress cycle. And, stress, we all have it, we've all evolved. We got the amygdala. It tells us, messages, important messages in terms of avoiding danger. But we need to complete the stress cycle. So I think about recognizing that we need to respond to stress, we need to release the stress and
Yep.
return to a state of balance. And what are some stressors? We all have them. Work, money, finances, family, just not enough time, cultural norms, expectations, experiences of discrimination. There's so many. And then in addition, there's the internal stressors, self-criticism, body image, identity. We have a lot that we're wrestling with. And all of those things, all these stressors can be interpreted by the body as potential threats. So the last part I'll share here is our body is a wonderful tool and gift if we tune in. We have these neurological and physiological responses to perceived threats. We've heard before there's fight, flight, and freeze, and we sense that, and heart rate increases, rapid breathing. We might have a knot in our stomach. We need to pay attention to that. We might become irritable, anxious, loss of concentration. We might become emotionally numb. There's also physiological impacts, right? With too much stress can, decrease our health, impacting sleep, injuries, illness. So there's a number of signs that we can indeed pay attention to in trying to avoid the crash and burn.
You speak to such an interesting point that the cognitive decline under extreme continued stress. And I know you've got a gift that will help our listeners address that. Could you talk a little bit about this gift for listeners and how they can get their hands on it?
Yes, absolutely. Based on working with so many clients who wrestle with this idea of overwhelm, too much to do, don't know where to start, I created an Activate Your Week planner. So,
Okay.
a very simple, succinct tool to allow us to really narrow in on what's most important this week, because we can't indeed respond to everything. So, aiming to kind of narrow in what matters most, and then getting ready for the most important conversations and meetings of the week, and then to really think about alignment both in your actions and commitment and time. So I want to offer to the listeners this. I'll have this available. Anyone who wants to reach out, I'll send it right along, and they can reach out to me via email. Lisa at layupcoachingandconsulting.com. They can find me via my website, which is layupcoachingandconsulting.com, or via LinkedIn. And I would be happy to send this along.
I understand too that for women who might want more support, you're also offering a complimentary consult. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and I'm really happy. I'm passionate just because of my own experience to wanting to open up and let women know that there's a space and a confidential space to actually let these and feelings out, just to put them out there. They're real. So I'm offering 30-minute consult for women to come and check in and really talk about their overwhelm. And then I'll work with them on some very specific strategies that are best for them. So hopefully they'll move forward with just a little bit more ease.
Lisa, can you share some practical strategies for coping with stress?
Yes, this is one of my favorite parts because there's so many. And I think this is incredibly important. And I want all listeners to know, goodness, is she going to tell me one more thing to do? And the answer is no, because that's how I felt when people were like, well, geez, let's just give you one more thing to do.
Uh-huh.
No, but here are some practical, easy, don't take a lot of time strategies, and pick what resonates for you. So first and foremost, we know this one, exercise. get some exercise. We need to move. And if we can move outside, that's even more impactful. And I want to just be creative with the exercise. People are like, I don't have time to go to the gym. I understand. You don't need to. And maybe you can break up 20 or 30 minutes of exercise a day with a 10-minute walk in the morning, a 5-minute break, a walk around the building or wherever your workspace might be, and then 10 minutes at the end of the day. So really trying to put them in these really tight, succinct windows, because I understand people are like, I do not have an hour to go to the gym. Also, if you can have your movement within nature, we know nature lowers cortisol levels, it improves well-being, it enhances cognitive function, reduces anxiety. And the key thing, it can even be in your neighborhood, just notice. Notice the trees, notice the sky, notice the plants, wherever you might be. I think that noticing absolutely helps to eliminate stress. Breathing, that's something that we carry with us each and every day, just to take really slow, deep breaths. And I love the practice of breathing in 4 box. So
Mhm.
you're doing a deep inhale on the count of 4, you're holding it on the count of 4, you release on the count of 4, and hold again on the count of 4 before beginning the cycle again. And that we can take with us anywhere.
Right.
I think positive social interaction is a really strong mechanism for coping with stress, connecting with friends, family, the community, whatever it might be. Big one, rest and sleep. Sleep being so restorative. I want to mention this is one of my favorites is to cultivate positive self-talk. I think our inner critic can be loud and relentless. And if we can find a way, whether we are journaling affirmations or a gratitude journal, whatever it might be, but boy, the way we talk to ourselves really has impact on our stress levels. And then other ways to cope, let it out, cry, journal, connect with a therapist, get a thinking or accountability partner, check in with a coach to process your thoughts. I think there's a number of mechanisms to support us, and they can be small, easy, and accessible. And then at work, I just wanted to mention a few. Prioritize your tasks. And again, that connects back to the tool that I'm offering. Activate your week in the planner, build and follow a schedule, set your intention and commit to it. Be honest about your workload in conversations with your team, with your colleagues, with your boss. When folks are coming to you, I got one more thing for you. Here's project B. Have the open conversation of like, all right, well, let's talk about project A and can we adjust these delivery dates? Can there be some negotiation as things do, of course, constantly change and move, and the expectations are heavy for women in these senior roles? And then to set boundaries around work hours.
Yeah.
Practice no. Boy, that's been hard for me. Still hard for me. Delegate where you can and have some consistency with hours and ask for help when needed.
And why is it so hard for so many women to ask for help?
Yes, and I'll have to say, myself included,
Oh, yeah.
and but
Yes.
practicing. Um, but I think this goes back to societal norms that
Yes.
place women as caregivers. So ironically, many of us do just that. We're caring for our teams, our employees, company results, family, community obligations, yet we're often at the bottom of the list.
Mhm.
And I believe we are working so hard to prove I'm worthy, I can do it, I
Mhm.
add value.
Mhm.
So we might view asking for help or saying no or clarifying boundaries as too vulnerable or exposed.
Right.
And we all know the adage of put the oxygen mask on yourself
Yes. I'm thinking that
or
as you're saying
right.
it. Yes.
Right, before helping your child. And this reminds us that to get our needs met, we can thrive and help others. And if we truly evaluated how impactful that can be on us, on our careers,
Mhm.
we'll all be better equipped to sustain our efforts. And I think it's okay to prioritize us and our unique needs.
I love that. Again, I want to share with viewers as you're listening to this episode of Grace Grit Getting It Done, reach out to Lisa. She has got an awesome practical tool, Activate Your Week, that is going to help you prioritize your work week and what you're doing at home. You can reach Lisa at layupcoachingandconsulting.com. That's her email. Or you can go to her website, layupcoachingandconsulting.com. So, Lisa, I want to get into your story because we've had a couple of conversations. We both used to work in sports television. We know what a high stress environment that is. So, how did you come? Let me ask you, how did you survive the corporate arena and then come into saying, you know what, I'm going to start a business helping other women who are working at that high level of leadership?
Yes.
Why do you do what you do, and how did you start?
Yes, great questions. And I love sharing the story. I don't know that we love sharing it. We're in the midst of it, but then we'll look back and we go, wow, I made it. So I'll start with, yes, why do I do what I do, and tell you a little bit about my passion and my purpose. So I believe in leaders' capacity to become 1% better. And it's inspiring to witness and guide their transformation, to just see that in action. I love to help others in their journey to evolve, be, and achieve. And, that's one of the big things that was a learning moment for me. I just thought I was a doer, 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 doer. But
Mhm.
there's this being, which is also incredibly part of probably, I would say, more important, as a human experience, is the being and not just always the doing. So I want to help leaders integrate all of those, the evolving, the being, and achieving the goals that are most important to them. And I believe there are numerous possibilities for women to define their path of success, and that's going to look different in different chapters of their lives, and that they have the ability to tap into inner wisdom. It is there. The answers are there to create a bit of ease and contentment on the leadership journey. And again, especially high achieving women who wrestle with this overwhelm and the perception that they should be operating at 110% in every aspect of their lives. Um, and I believe in curiosity. I think that fuels our understanding and learning to uncover what's at the core of a person or issue. And I believe in the ability to cultivate new habits that allow leaders to achieve the next level of excellence, whatever that might be for them. So those are some of the things that drive me, and again, kind of the foundation of what I believe, um, in my work.
I want to ask you the hard question that we're all really curious about. What was your personal experience of overwhelm? How did
Yeah.
you realize I am burned out?
Yes.
What was that
Yes.
like?
So I wish I could tell you that I handled it in a strategic or proactive way, but I did not. So I share my story with other women, hoping to normalize and validate the experience
Right.
while sharing coping strategies that might bring a bit of relief and hope for those who are currently overwhelmed. So this was not so long ago, 4 years ago, and I was at a time of trying to hold it all together and fighting up against it. I'm like, I can do this. And so I was the head of HR in a very demanding work environment. I was managing a really difficult and sensitive situation with one of my daughters that required a leave of absence. I was enrolled in a rigorous education program, working on my coaching certificate. I was the member of a board, and I was just feeling wildly overwhelmed. It's interesting. I just took paying attention to our body. I just had to take a deep breath as I was thinking about all of those things. It really brought me back to that time. And I was fighting hard to keep all these responsibilities going, right? We talk about keeping the balls in the air, our career, family, children, aging parents, our home, health, and then not carving out enough time to care for self. And I have to share, I did not win the battle with overwhelm. I did burn out, and I did leave my corporate job.
Mhm.
It was too much.
Yeah. So that aha moment where it's me or the job and it needs to be me. What was that? Can you
Yes. And I absolutely had an aha moment, because it wasn't so sudden. Again, that was kind of like the convergence of all that was going on in my life at the time. But I would say, if I were going to really narrow it down to a moment where I was like, wow, Lisa, you need a change, I would say this happened within my coaching program. And we were exploring the importance of guiding clients to identify their core values, right? As we know, these core values, they center us, they help with decision making, and they align our words and actions. And as many coaching programs do, they have students doing the work themselves. So as I'm holding up this mirror is being held up, and I had to look at myself and look within to name my values and see that I was not really living them. That I experienced my aha moment. And I knew I needed to find change that honored my whole being. And it was a bit ironic, I want to share, to be the head of people and culture in the organization, holding company values front and center to guide our policies, practices, and systems. Yet I was not doing it for myself.
because you were at the end of the line and you put everyone else first, right? Which is what you're talking about. That's the first step in self-realization.
Mhm.
I so appreciate you sharing that. So this leads me to the next question. That's a place of feeling isolation,
Mm,
feeling you have to stand up and deliver, and you're running on fewer and fewer resources. So,
mm.
what was it that made you realize it's not just me? I'm not the only woman experiencing this extreme level of stress and the burnout that's resulting from it. What was
Right.
that moment for you?
Mhm. Yes, and I'll share, just kind of what took me out of corporate and what I needed at that time and is because and I just want to share this because I don't recommend this to all women, is I just needed
I love
to decompress. So I took time to rest and reflect and reset. And like I said, I don't believe that's a viable option nor a recommended one. So I just want to say to listeners, do not keep pushing up against the wall of overwhelm. It
Yep.
will win. And for me, I even felt a bit of depression and I really needed to rest and heal. So I did. So, and it is true, Lisa, to your point, I absolutely do see this happening and did within corporate and then also with the clients I work with. So throughout my career, I witnessed women who bore those expectations to do more, both in the office and at home, and managing the invisible cognitive and emotional effort required for coordinate the tasks, be the responsible, navigate all the relationships.
Mhm.
And this is really interesting. I just got my SHRM magazine. So SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management, put out they great magazine and articles and great resource. They just published an article. I just want to share the name of it. The Essential Playbook for Navigating the New Realities for Today's Working Women. And I guess what I want to say is they're not new. They're not new. So let me just share a couple of things. And there's some good data here, but it's not new. So we're still navigating gender related inequities and bias. It's not new. And this makes working and growing and thriving harder. And these are our realities, a couple of data points. So the Department of Labor reported that the employment rate of mothers with children under 13, 72%, while fathers with children under 13, 92%.
Mhm.
Applicants with employment gaps were 45% less likely to receive an interview opportunity. Moms often have employment gaps. Female managers less likely than their male counterparts to reach their current role by internal promotion. 40% for women, compared to 48% for men. Last data point here. 71% of men report receiving support for career growth by management versus 60% of women. And I just want to share this lines up with my experience. My
Mhm.
career growth, change of titles, compensation, more responsibility, that came from moving from one organization to the next.
Mhm. There is so much data out there besides just the most recent research that you're referencing that just backs up exactly what you're saying, Lisa. Um, this is a question I want to ask you that I always ask everyone. If you could give your younger self advice, what would you like to say to yourself from your current vantage point?
Yes. So a few things, but starting with and it's more of a mantra for me these days, pause. So
Love
the
that.
advice is check in with yourself. And
Mhm.
I want to say that I think this is a value no matter where you are. It's a value when you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, to pause, notice, and reflect on what matters most to you at that time. I'd say to myself, tune in to my internal compass. It signals, it gives us the signals. You're doing too much. There's a sense of overwhelm. This does not feel quite right. And to recognize that external measures are not the only barometers of success.
Yes.
Yeah, career growth, yes. Title, responsibility, compensation, those are wonderful things. And I'm not saying don't aspire, but
Mm.
ask this question is take the time to assess what percent of work is getting the best of you, and then what's left for other aspects of life. And that's going to be different for everyone. But again, the advice is regularly assess how and where you spend your time and what do you value right now. And I think about there's six main segments to kind of think about life for all of us. I think that we might all agree that, yep, I might want to evaluate how I'm spending time in each of those. And I'll mention them briefly. One is relationships. How much time are you giving to relationships with a partner, significant other, family,
Mhm.
friendship? Number two is body, mind, spirituality. What are you doing to stay physical, mindfulness, wellness, spirituality, and faith? I know that's different for all of us. How much
Yes.
time are you giving to that? Number three is community and society. What are you doing to give back and to stay involved and be engaged socially? Number four is the job, learning and finances. How much time are we giving to work and education and again, our financial future? Number five is interest and entertainment.
Mhm.
Those are our hobbies and how we want to spend our time and with others and again, fun activities, travel. And the last is personal care. And those are our sleeping, eating, and activities of daily life. So I think that's key, just to pause and really think about, because if you start putting some percents to that or even carving out your week in terms of hours, I think it's a good tool to utilize and then recognize, because for example, if I go back to thinking about corporate and if I'm looking at, let's say this category number four of the job, goodness, I had to 75, 80% of my time dedicated to work. And then maybe I was trying to slide 20% of time into those other categories. And it's just not enough.
Yeah.
Couple of the thoughts I just want to share too is about the advice realm is being open to adjust and determine that you'll have different priorities based on different life chapters.
Important. Yes.
Right? It's like when you are, let's say, if you're a young mom, that's going to be really different than, if there's health concerns that happen to us and to others, that changes how we spend time. To aging parents, that changes how we spend time. So I want to encourage folks, we need to leave time, space for adjustment. And then to know that we can change those, right? You might have to change them, 90 days, 6 months, a year. I'm going to go back to asking for help as well. That's an important advice to me. And know that that's a sign of strength and belief in others. And also to think about trying something new, to experiment, to learn if something doesn't work, to move on to something else, but don't give up experimenting. And the last advice to me, look at all the nuggets of wisdom I picked up over the years, is to carve out the essential time for me to
Yes.
rest, restore, rejuvenate in whichever way that looks and feeds you, because the
Mhm.
impact's tremendous. There'll be end up more focus and zest for all those other responsibilities.
Yeah, critical to take care of the self. So critical. So I want to share one more time. You've got a gift, Activate Your Week, which you're offering to all listeners. So for those of you who want it, and believe me, as soon as we're done here, I'm going to go send Lisa an email. You can reach her, Lisa at layupcoachingandconsulting.com. Send her an email or go to her website, layupcoachingandconsulting.com, to get this free gift, Activate Your Week. So you've got a great tool that's going to help you focus and start to prioritize. Lisa, I want to ask you about some of your other strategies you've got. You have a process that you use with every client. It's a life assessment process. Can you just talk about that and why it's so important to start there?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So and I will give um, credit where this tool came from. So it's an HBR life strategy assessment, and I'm going to mention three tools that I really are go-to tools for me as I work with clients. So this one allows for um, time and focus on what are my aspirations, what's my life purpose and vision. And I really love the structure of it, because as much as we're at work and we're thinking about what are our strategies, and who are the key stakeholders, and what are the objectives, and how am I going to measure success, this life strategy document and tool allows you to do the same work that we take so much time and care for, right, within the workplace, to do the same for your life. So that is a tool that I like to use, and that also lines up with those 6 categories that I was sharing about life, to
Mhm.
ensure that how do I want to spend my time, and to be intentional with each of those. The second tool that is a definite go-to, and I use with a lot of clients, is the VIA Character Strength Survey. This is a free online tool that ends up providing to you what are your top character strengths. In knowing that ends up really supporting the conversation about what's most important to you, and then leveraging your strengths and ensuring that, again, that lines up with the work that you're doing. And then the last one I want to share is this tool called the Immunity to Change. And I
Uh-huh.
think for all of us, we are looking to evolve and grow. There's things that get in the way, and this tool helps to explore what are the belief systems and assumptions that underpin why we do what we do.
So important. So I know that listeners are like, okay, I've got to talk to Lisa Yarussi. I've got to get on her schedule. Can you just share the easiest way for people who want to speak to you directly, take advantage of that complimentary consult? How should they reach out to you?
Yes, absolutely. So they can go to my website. I have a contact page, and it just, easily through Calendly can get in touch with me. So again, the website is www at layupcoachingandconsulting.com. So the Calendly link is there, or they can email me directly, Lisa at layupcoachingandconsulting.com.
I know why you chose that name for your company, but can you just talk about what a layup is for those listeners who may not be sports fans?
Yes, absolutely. And so a couple of reasons. It is the play on sports, which I was always a fan of sports. My sport was as a runner, but it is also my initials. So LAY. So that was fun. And then up is I always like to think about we are moving and evolving up. And then when I think about a layup, it is something that is simple and necessary to play the game well. And I think about, again, the work that we do and the work that I do with clients is, yes, we're uncovering, new strategies, but there also needs to be a sense of keeping it simple so that we can repeat it. So it can become a sense of ease.
I love that. Can you share what you're either watching, reading, or listening to lately that listeners may find helpful?
Yes, I am an avid reader. I wish I could go through all the lists, but I'll share just a couple. And that certainly connects with our topic here today. I recently read Thrive
Yeah.
by Ariana Huffington. It's an older book from 2014, but boy, it's good. And she shares her own story of really leaning on the American definition of success, right? And looking at all those external measures of success. But she says from her own learning and coming up to burnout that there's more beyond money and power. And she speaks about well-being, wisdom, and wonder. And I think those are key parts of, enjoying and celebrating life. So that book really resonated. There's also a second book I'll mention, Loving What Is by Byron Katie. She's fascinating. She asks these questions to challenge our own thinking. So whatever thought you might have or frustration you might have, is it true? Can you
Yes.
can you be absolutely certain that it's true? How would you be without that thought? Probably relieved, but it's a really nice, simple yet rigorous process to challenge our thinking. Um, I'll mention two podcasts, actually a couple of TED Talks that I love, always go tos, and I like to share with clients. I think you have to go and do this, get a little inspiration, is Brene Brown's Power of Vulnerability. It's a repeat for me. I love it.
Mhm.
Also, Bill Burnett has a talk, Designing the Life You Want.
Mhm.
And I think that that's really impactful and connects with our conversation today. And then I'll leave you with a podcast, which is A Bit of Optimism by Simon Sinek, which I love him. And the guest that he has is tremendous. And we all need a bit of optimism.
Don't
So
we?
it's really good.
Don't we? So, Lisa, if there was one message you wanted to really resonate with listeners when they think about having listened to this episode in a week or two or in the next day, what is that message you really want to communicate to listeners?
I want folks to hear you're not alone.
Yeah.
Your feelings of overwhelm are real and they're telling you something. And you have options. Find a moment, a friend, a coach to help you. Pause, identify how you're feeling and where in your body it's showing up. Name your priorities, bring others in for help, set boundaries, and then just find one small way to create rest and joy for you because you deserve it. And then giving yourself that gift, you'll be able to better allocate your most precious resource, which is your time and energy, to the things and people that matter most.
That's brilliant. Please share again how listeners can connect with you and not only take advantage of your Activate Your Week
Mhm.
complimentary gift, but also take the opportunity to speak with you, an expert in this field. How should listeners reach out again, please?
Yes, would love to hear from them. They can reach me directly through email, lisa@layupcoachingandconsulting.com, or via my website, layupcoachingandconsulting.com. I have a contact page there. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Lisa Yarussi. I think I'm the only one out there with that name.
And spell your last name, please.
Yes, Yarussi, Yarussi.
And
Thank
for those listeners who may not have anything to write with, Just go to layupcoachingandconsulting.com and you will find Lisa. Any closing thoughts? This has been so enlightening and so helpful and so affirming. Any
Thank
closing thoughts?
you. Yes, just a couple, and I think I would probably repeat some things that have already been shared, but key for women, take time to notice.
Yeah.
Our bodies have the answers we often ignore. We keep pushing forward for our careers, our colleagues, family, kids, partners, parents, the community. We've been socialized to strive to have it all, yet it was not shared that there might be consequences or an expense along the way, our health and well being. So be aware of giving up self in this ever present effort to fit in, accommodate, excel. There's a cost. And putting in the extra time with work, what might I be giving up, and evaluate what am I missing out with these other life activities that might indeed fuel and replenish the human tank. So take time to evaluate and take time to invest in yourself.
I love that. Thank you so much for being a guest on Grace Grit, Getting It Done. It was absolutely my pleasure and my honor to interview you. There is so much wisdom in your words. Lisa, again, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening. This has been Grace Grit, Getting It Done. I'm your host, Lisa Gillette. If you have questions or you'd like to reach out and be a guest, drop me an email. Lisa@bigsky.coach. That's Lisa@bigsky.coach. Thanks for listening.